Yeah. Okay, I think we're live, people. So we'll make a start. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Service Delivery Committee meeting for today, the 21st of March. Great to see you all here, and we'll start off with apologies, and we already have some apologies. Claire, we've got Andrew Brown.
Apology for lateness from Councillor.
Yeah, so hopefully he'll be here shortly. He's got another meeting. Thank you, Mike, and a seconder, please. Thank you, Philip. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. And now we have disclosure of members' interests. Yes, Lou.
Yeah, well,
okay, so that's for the road closure? Yeah, okay. We'll expect you to leave the room for that. Yeah. Well, he is the organiser. Yes, so excuse me, we need, Liz would like to say something.
Would you like a conflict of interest for the Dragon Boat Festival, just because it's an event at the Domain?
Yeah.
The road closure is for the parade in Cambridge down the main street, which I will be speaking at.
Oh, okay.
As a council person, though.
Yeah, okay.
I'll just declare it.
I think we'll note that. Thank you, Liz. Appreciate that. All right, so no other conflicts? Thank you. All right. And any late items? Great. All right, we'll move on then to confirm the order of the meeting. Could we have a move? Thank you, Roger, and a seconder. Thank you, Bruce. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. Right, now the next one is the confirmation of the open minutes. So we have those on page 8 of our agenda. So just quickly go through 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yes, Roger. Thank you. I noticed that there was an update to the minutes. Yeah, so yeah, thank you. You grabbed those mover and seconder? No, so had Roger and was it Lou? Yeah, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. And now moving into our first business item, which is the Water Services Activity Report. And I welcome Martin Mould to the chair. Good to see you here, Martin. And we'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Cool. Through the chair, just to take the report as read and just give a few notes. On there is obviously the effects of Cyclone Gabrielle resulted in a minor non-compliance at the Cambridge Wastewater Treatment Plant. The inflow was greater than we could cope with, so we did put out more than our consent allows for. But there was a great effort from the team responding to the issues, which were mainly power outages for us across the district, ensured there was no interruption to water supply or wastewater conveyance. So that was a great result. And we got full compliance for the drinking water standards this reporting period. And then just a couple of other things. There's an apology for an error on the graph in 3.2 water treated total takes. For the Cambridge graph, it shows a very high increase. That was incorrect, so apologies for that. That's a result of the PLC work we're doing, which controls the system, collects all the data. We're currently replacing it. So it was a double up of data from the old system and the new one mashed together. So apologies for that.
That's relief.
Yeah. And also just the Cambridge Wastewater Treatment Plant resource consent, which we submitted just before Christmas, was publicly notified on Friday, 17th of March for submissions. And that submission period closes on the 17th of April.
Congratulations on that. Thank you.
Yeah. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Yes, Roger.
Yeah, Martin, thank you. And a very good report. All those thumbs up. That's what I like to see. That's really, really good. Can you background where the additional demand from the water regulator is coming from in terms of the data that we need to constantly supply to them to ensure their enhanced regulations are being complied with?
Yep, so it's quite a detailed collection of data required. It's probably a 30% increase on the previous drinking water standards of data we need to supply to them. A lot more instrumentation needed, and a lot more work needed to get the reports, which they now get full data reports monthly.
Yeah. So, sorry, you say there's a lot more data. What particular areas of that data are they asking for more information on? Because I mean, I was on the understanding we do a lot of data collection on our water already. What additional data are they wanting? Have you got
So there's extra, I'd say
examples?
there's extra instrumentation we needed, so that's extra data. Also, under the previous regime, we only gave them information if we thought we were non-compliant, and then they would then investigate that. We didn't report that we were compliant. We just reported non-compliances. Whereas with Tomato ROI, they get all the data, and so we have to make sure that the systems are in place to transfer that data from us to them monthly, and they then review the data on top of that.
So we don't have to get any more data sampling. We've got as part of our
There's an increase in data points required of what we need to collect from the instrumentation and all the things that happen in the water treatment plants. There's an increase in the number of samples we have to take out in reticulation. So they've increased significantly the number of samples we need to take to show compliance.
So from your graphs that we're seeing here, even though we're doing a higher level of sampling, we've still got a high level of compliance.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, through the chair. Really good report, Martin. Hey, just on page 19 of your report, so 3.2, I'm thinking it is, all the graphs, the water treatment graphs, all the graphs on the left-hand side, Te Tahi, Te Awamutu combined and Kihiki, they sort of show less usage of water treated. But on the other side there, I mean, Cambridge is sort of tracking as it always has, but Pukeremu, just tell me about Pukeremu and also about Frontier Road. In terms of Pukeremu seems to be quite a bit higher when all the others are sort of tracking lower than the average.
So Pukeremu supplies Te Awamutu now as well. So that's
right.
Te Awamutu. So there's a Te Awamutu combined, which is Te Tahi, Frontier Road and Pukeremu.
Right.
So they're all sort of in there, and there's a lot more demand in the rural area of Pukeremu now than there was, and we've certainly allowed more connections since the new treatment plant's been built, whereas before there was a unofficial no more connections because we couldn't supply in the peak of summer. So we've certainly allowed more connections over the last year.
Right, brilliant. Yep, thank you.
Yes, Bruce.
Welcome, Martin. 3.1 Racecourse Road and Harpo Road. I presume it's a correction. You've got you renewing the trunk main, but a third line down to assist fire flow. Should it be water flow? I don't know.
So that's to part of the upgrade is to improve the fire flow capacity of the pipe.
Oh,
so that's the rationale for that
so
statement.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Madam Chair. Just a quick call to, firstly, Martin, thank you very much for your report, and very well written, great. I just wanted to develop a little bit more on what Councillor Gordon was talking about. There will be, of course, quite a bit of extra cost to our council with this new compliance that we're doing for Tarawai. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
You almost would have to commit more staff to this particular operation.
Yes, so and all the increases, we tried to predict the increases that would come, and they were included in the LTP of the increases, so they're within budget. The budget did go up to cater for all the extra sampling we needed to do and all the extra data and work. So currently it's manageable. Yeah.
Yes, Susan.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Good question, Lou. I was going to ask the same. Certainly some of the feedback I've been getting from other mayors is a significant increase in costs in terms of that compliance
required with Taumata Arawai. Look, my question, Martin, is on that same page. I want to understand more about the resource consent compliance matter in terms of the stormwater abatement notice that was issued 8 months ago at the Keke Speedway. There's kind of no change in reporting since we were told about this 8 months ago. So I want to try and understand more about that. And I assume it would have certainly not alleviated at all any over this last week period.
Yep, so the abatement notice is due to contamination in the stream, which 8 months ago was coming from the Speedway. On the whole, most of it was coming from the Speedway. So we've been working with the Speedway and the Regional Council to solve that. And the Speedway have built their own stormwater detention device, which is a vast improvement on their previous one. So that's almost complete. But there is still contamination coming from other areas. So we won't be able to remove the abatement notice until we've fully resolved where the sediment's coming from and stop that.
So in terms of that ongoing stormwater discharge, it's still all coming from Speedway, is that what you're saying?
No, it's from other areas. The Speedway now
They've
is
addressed their
totally
bit?
separate. They've addressed their issues. Yeah.
So where are the other, so what's the source of the other discharge then?
It's not proven yet, but it's probably from the horse arena that's near the Speedway, from the rodeo arena, which has got a horse arena, and that when the rain goes through that does go into our system.
Okay.
So it does make it cloudy just from washing through there.
Okay. And are there, I take it there's work being done to try and resolve that then?
We've started discussions. Again, it's an expensive solution. So we've been dealing with property on where that responsibility lies.
Okay. Great. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Yes, Marcus.
I'm just wondering about the 11 non-compliances for tradeways. Do we prosecute and like what happens there? Like, or do we help them with it? And is that number quite high for that period? Or
so I don't think it's not a normal. It's probably an average number. It depends on how really we only catch them when we do audits. So it depends how active we are auditing. Generally, it's educational for when people have got non-compliance. It's educational. This is what you did wrong. This is what you need to do to put it right. It would only lead to a prosecution if someone continued to breach their tradeways consent conditions and didn't do anything to address them. So I don't think we've not prosecuted anybody for a long time. Yeah.
but is it the same people with the non-compliances, or is it this?
It's different. It's generally different people. Usually, once they've been audited and found to be non-compliant, they do address the problem.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you. And I just have a minor matter, which is under the Picarau Reserve in Cambridge Road. That's with the stormwater maintenance contract. Just that we know that the school had its name changed to Picarau. Should we be changing the name of the reserve too? That's all. Anyway. Oh, Sally's there. Yeah.
Through the chair, if you just leave that question with me and I'll go back to the team on that.
Thank you. And Martin, I just had a question about at the Watkins Road reservoir. There's a leaky bladder. Could you just give us an idea of what the implications of that are for us? That's on page 27 of our agenda.
Yeah, sure.
It's under the networks team operations update.
Okay.
It's page 11 of your report.
Yep.
Right at the bottom there, second to last bullet point, the Watkins.
Yes, so the Watkins Road Reservoir, or Cambridge North Reservoir, it's got a couple of names just to confuse us. So it's a bladder reservoir. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a bladder reservoir. So it's made of material, and when it fills, it raises, and when it's empty, it goes down. So it's like a bladder, and it is so it's on the schedule to be renewed in the next few years. That's the current work we're doing at Watkins is putting the new pipes in, and pump station is the first start of that project to replace that reservoir. So it does leak quite often. Then we have to drain it and fix it to stop contamination coming in the reservoir. So it's an ongoing maintenance regime. Yeah.
So I guess they're not large leaks and then you can obviously repair them as well.
Yeah, currently we're able to repair them, but it is at the end of its
Life, yeah.
lifespan.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yes, Mike.
Through the chair, sorry, one last question here. 3.9 asset planning, that's strategic. The work being done with regional council around, we've done all this stuff in town for flood hazards. That's been completed, and it got down to how many houses. The same here has been done for the rural properties, but it looks to me like it's sort of more focused around river flood plains. So just a comment around that, and also when this is all washed up, will this also go on those properties LIM reports?
So the regional council have a flood hazard map which does show from river inundation, where we're going to start the rural flood hazard mapping like we did for the urban. Not quite as detailed, but it will eventually, if we do identify people that are prone to flooding, that will end up on their limbs. Yeah.
So with all the latest events and things, is there any heads up around how insurance companies might deal with this in the past? I mean, it's gone on LIM reports, but with all the storm damage and things, and insurance companies maybe changing their tune on insuring properties, have we done any work or any research how this is going to affect individual properties around insurance?
No.
No.
We've certainly not heard anything from the 100 houses that have got a lead on their limb currently from the urban report. We haven't had any feedback from them that's impacted them at all. But we could certainly ask them if that was deemed appropriate.
Well,
But it might be.
Yeah, something might be
aggravating.
not to ask. Someone
Yes.
else can ask that question, but
Yeah.
I was just wondering. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no more questions. Thanks very much, Martin, for giving us all that extra information to support your report. Now, we have a recommendation to receive your report, and could I have a movement? Thank you, Lou, and a seconder. Mike, thanks. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. All right, our next item is the Cambridge Connection strategic case. And I can see Rachel Algar there. Thank you coming forward. Thank you, Rachel. Welcome. And also Brian Hudson. Thank you. So I hand it over to you two to speak to this item. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Worship the Mayor and Councillors, the Chair. We're pleased to be able to present to you the Cambridge Connection strategic case, which is the front section of the program business case, for your information, and noting that it is draft, and there will be further refinements in the coming months as we receive modelling information, etc. But I just open up for questions. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Roger.
I'd like to really compliment the team that have come up with this report. As you know, it's an item that I've been really particularly interested in. I've been through it word by word, as you know, and I acknowledge the fact that you'll come back to me on that long list of, and their comments and statements, and not meant in criticism of the report, but it's really excellent. And I think throughout the report, there are a number of statements, quite strong statements, that actually do endorse the need for change across the whole network. And I can see very much the logic in the report as it's going through, and it's building that case and making the statements through each of the sections that encompass change. So well done. And I'm looking forward to that meeting in April when we see the long list and then the short list of preferred outcomes. So I'm really, really happy. Good.
That's a relief, Roger. That's good to hear. Okay, and Philip's got some comments as well.
Yeah, good morning, and through the chair, and morning to you all. And thanks very much for the report. It's really thorough and takes quite a lot to absorb it. Could be classed as the bestseller for this year, as far as booksellers go. But just a couple of comments. Many times it's mentioned cycling and walking and things like that, and that project is well underway. It's well established, as long with public transport and things. There's been some changes to the public transport service to Hamilton. So the question is there going to be, and you know, with regards to a bridge, the lifespan of the bridge and things like that, you know, it's identified that it's only got a it's only got a hasn't got a long-term lifespan as a vehicle bridge, particularly. Both for congestion and vehicles. But sorry, the question is there going to be a recommendation for us with our long-term plan next year for a bridge corridor to be identified and as part of our long-term plan discussions and everything like that? Yeah.
Morning, everybody. So certainly this type of business case, a program business case, it's going to come up with a suite of actions that we should take over time to evolve the transport system for Cambridge for the growth. So you can expect to see a range of activities in the recommendations. And obviously one recommendation will be about the bridge, but until we get through the meaty part of the study and the investigation and option analysis and everything, it would be too early to say to you that this is a definite answer or a definite location or anything like that.
But it's whether we need to make that as a priority for our long-term plan for next year. However it pans out, the study pans out, and the recommendations and things like that.
Understood. So certainly, yes, the program business case will say these are the actions that you should take quickly because they've got the best impact or the best benefits for the community, and it'll give an order of cost for those. And if there are ones that we're not doing already in our current LTP and they're in the short term, then we can add them as projects to the LTP. But there will be others that are saying, well, these are longer term things that you'll need to plan for and will take longer to deliver. And so there might be a further investigation phase in the current LTP or the next LTP. So it will produce a program of works and a time frame and the likely costs.
And then the same probably with public transport. We've got a great service to Hamilton that's really good, but a Cambridge specific public transport service, however that may look, the Uber style or the conventional orbiter style type service or whatever. So again, is that going to be a recommendation as well? It's probably a similar question, but
I guess so we know public transport will be part of the solution. We know in our current long-term plan, it already sets out a bit of a program for increasing bus services in terms of going to that next phase with more community orientated rather than an express bus service. We know that that's in our current long-term plan. So certainly staff will be reviewing that and making recommendations for the next LTP as to how quickly it progresses and what costs are put in there. So that will proceed because that's across the district. That will proceed regardless of the outcomes of this business case.
Okay, cool. Oh, thanks very much for the report. It's really great. And thanks for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now I've got some other questions. Got Liz and then Roger and then Mike.
Look, thank you very much. Look, this of course has been a long time coming, but what it does is it creates an opportunity for our community now to comment on this. But first of all, this brings everything together. All the niggles that we've got in Cambridge, this brings all of that together so that we can really analyse all the data and make some really good decisions going forward. So I hear what Councillor Coles is saying, but it's too early to decide at this point kind of which direction we're going to go in, because like Roger said, we are meeting late April and we'll have these options, long options, short options. And I really look forward to that meeting because I think it's going to be very, very challenging. But I think at that point we'll be able to give the community some certainty as to what direction we're going in. But one of the things I did last night, this particular document, it's really important we get this out. Our community in Cambridge is very interested in this. So I sent it out to Joe last night, a whole bunch of people that I know that are have a real interest in it. And I think that the more of our community that we can bring along this journey, the better, because there's a lot of understanding to take place. Problem one, problem two. You know, there's quite a journey and a real change of mindset and to identify kind of where the Cambridge issues are. So I'm really keen to circulate this, obviously, once we get it into a better form, and just try and help bring the issues around and get some form of understanding. That might be some workshops, you know, with key people, public workshops as well. So I'm really quite keen to hear that direction, if that's possible.
Great ideas, Liz. Thank you. Roger.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Liz. Through you, Madam Chair. Having just made my comment how supportive I am of this, and I was very aware that Brian's response to Philip was quite a political statement, not wishing to give any specific direction. But having read it, there are certain signals in here about the network suitability and the bridge. And the way I interpreted your comment was that this finished report, giving the long options and the short options, may identify that one of the longer options may be a further series of investigations as to where a possible bridge crossing should be. Now, am I interpreting your sitting on the fence as being correct? Because my perception was that in there, it really does say there is a need, undoubtedly, for the bridge, and the fact that we need to identify where the site is. When it gets built, I think will come out. But my interpretation of the report as it stands is, yes, the site of the bridge will be identified within the scope of this report. From what I'm hearing you say, you're saying it might not be. Can I have clarification? Will it or won't it?
Yep, no, good questions. I guess you're right. You know, my answer was a little bit political, but I'm also aware that there's, there's people in the community who say the bridge must be here or the bridge must be there, and I want to avoid, rumours starting or misinformation. So certainly we understand that the current bridge has an economic life. It's true that you could throw lots and lots of money at it and keep on using it for traffic long into the future. So we know that's a possibility, but of course costs will just continue to escalate to keep that. And the study really talks about, in the problem statements, well, is that approach good for the town? Because it also continues a high volume of traffic right through the middle of the main street forever. So clearly there are other options to build a bridge in another location, and then the study and the traffic modelling and all the other things will actually come up with some really good answers or suggestions about where if you're going to build another bridge, where would be the better location for that bridge, because there could still be multiple locations that you could build a bridge, and they would have different benefits for the community. And different benefits for different transport users. But we want to get to what is the best location and the greatest benefit for the community. And that's going to take some more analysis.
So just confirming my understanding, that we'll therefore look at the options and come up with a recommended route for the bridge within the scope of this report.
It will do. But it may not say it's exactly here. It might say it's in this area.
Yeah, I'm getting the impression that there's still a process to be followed. And it may well be that there'll be further investigations that are needed, but the problem is, I mean, the whole purpose of this piece of work is to solve that problem and to come up with some workable solutions.
My concern is, and it's an endorsement of this report, is that there will be a number of options, but I want that number of options to be as wide as they can be, given the current availability of land, and that some of the options don't get overtaken by the very rapid development of Cambridge, particularly in those outer areas. And that's without me saying where I think the preferred bridge is. I'm just thinking we need to identify it before we get overtaken by whatever's going to happen in Cambridge.
Okay, now thank you, Roger. Now I've got some other questions. Mike, have you still got a question? Phil and then Mike over here.
Yeah, look, mine's, I don't think it's a question. It's just some data that I've picked out around context. So it's on page really 14, table 2. And it's just, yeah, I guess around this emission reduction goals that it's been set at 20%. And just to put some context around the difference it's going to make, that I believe. It's got the agriculture is by far Waipa's biggest contributor to emissions at 76%. Okay, and that the next is transport at 17%, which is 10%, but for us, which is around 10% of the region's transport emissions for Waipa. So then if I shoot over to the strategic context, you know, we're looking at making a 20% reduction, and we're, according to that data there, 17% of the transport emissions are from Waipa. So 20% of that is no, sorry. So there's 10% across Waikato of transport emissions, of which Waipa is 17% of that. So it's actually 1.7% of all of Waikato's transport emissions come from our district. We're looking at making a 20% reduction on that 1.7%. It's 0.34%. So, you know, the emissions is really negligible. And I just wonder whether I support all the stuff we're doing, and I'll sit on some of those committees. But if 76% of the emissions are coming from the agricultural centre, then, you know, are we into the wind in terms of really focusing on getting people into, you know, out of vehicles, if this is a real push on this around emissions, because I just can't see it making any difference. You know, I'm a bit torn here, because I sit on some of these committees, but when I see this data, even if we meet our targets, we're really not making an iota of difference. I mean, politically we might feel like we're doing the right thing, but if 76% is coming from agriculture, and this is not a question for you because you're transport, but maybe it's a question for council. What are we actually doing there, or what directions are we implementing from government to support trying to reduce that 76%? And I'm sure there's a whole heap being done, but as a councillor, I'd just like to know, hey, what has been done? Because that's, I think, biggest bang for buck to try and help that reduction. So yeah, it's not a really question, it's a statement, because you can't answer that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Brian is going to attempt to answer it though.
No, I
Brian.
just want to clarify. So the sort of reduction in transport emissions. So the government, with their plan, which Waipa District has to have a plan by the end of this financial year, because we're in that tier 1, that will manage our vehicle emissions or vehicle kilometres travelled by light vehicles at 2019 levels out at 2035. So while we're not actually driving a cut in emissions, what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep them at 2019 levels as the district grows. And so to do that, and that's why in a transport business case where we need government funding to fund the activities, we need to be able to demonstrate that we've got a plan which will play our part.
Yeah, no, yeah, and understand, and also understand the difference between emissions and the VKT, which is quite separate. And I totally understand. And what we are doing will definitely, hopefully, make a difference, or at least slow down the VKT, which is going to be hard to slow down because as the district grows, even by putting 10-20% of people on scooters and bikes and walking, it's still going to be hard to not stop that going up, I suspect.
Thank you, Mike. So, Phil, have you still got a comment? Or?
No, I mean,
just following on, are you just endorsing what Roger was saying?
Yeah, no,
okay,
I'm okay.
Cool, excellent. Thank you. We'll go on to Mike then.
My questions are building as we go. Can I just first of all back up Liz's point about socialising this part of the report with the community? In any change management process, the very first thing is why are we doing this? And Phil, you were saying this is a bestseller. For me, it's not. It's a prologue. The bestseller is going to come, but the why is really important, because if you start hitting people with solutions, they just don't get it. And I think even around this table, everyone's jumping to solutions, and I'm perfectly happy as a governor here to trust the process. What I've observed is really cool, good process, and I look forward to the next step of it. But yes, socialising this part, which is the why, I would support Liz. Just to the meeting in April, where the long list and short list of options are going to be canvassed. Obviously, that's the bit everyone's waiting for. I've just got a question about how that's going to get into the public domain and when council gets to hear about that as well. So there's just a question there. And finally, to Mike's point about the agricultural emissions, I've just got off a call to Germany about this. Just because the transport emissions are relatively minor in the grand scheme of it, that doesn't mean you don't do it. This is our lane. This district council has virtually no ability to influence agricultural emissions. So I think we're in our lane with attacking a serious problem. And so I think the fact that the ag emissions are so huge, don't get despondent about that. And it's a bit of a quirk about how carbon is accounted for, that the ag emissions look especially bad. It's because methane punches way above its weight because of the time horizon we've got. Okay, and if you read the agricultural greenhouse gas research stuff, a quote that always sticks with me. They say, if we get a hell of a handbasket, it's not going to be because of cows, it's going to be because of the burning of fossil fuels. Okay, so we do really need to keep our focus on the fossil fuel thing, and it's particularly this council, it's the lever that is most pullable for us. So just back to my question about the April meeting, how that's going to get to council and then the public. I'll just be interested in that.
A step. Yeah, so the April meeting is really around our key stakeholders and our partners coming together to look at a long list of ideas that were brought through from the stakeholder workshops and the previous program stakeholder group meetings. So that is really just our first start of that, and informed by traffic modelling and other data sets as per the strategic case as well that's been identified. So following that process and going through those options, the process is to not involve. There will be some stakeholder information sessions planned for May, and that's what we did last time, where we asked people to come in, interested, we call them stakeholders or interested parties, to come in and look at those options and see the story behind them, and present, a preferred approach to the program. We're not intending to do the level of public consultation per se that will be included in the long-term plan as part of the story in the long-term plan. When we know our preferred program has evolved out of the program business case.
And so where do councillors and council fit in that? Are they one of your stakeholder groups that are going to be involved?
Absolutely, yes. We've got councillors. Yeah. Yeah,
I get that, but the rest of us, are we going to be at the same time, immediately afterwards, or after the stakeholder group? I just think it's important to know this.
It will be close after it'll be close after the stakeholder group meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Just the point is that now with this report being in the agenda. It's now public
Public, yes.
arena. So it's been made public already, which is good.
Can I just add, we have a web page on the council website as well, which we're always updating as well. We've got a comms manager on board, Vicky Jones, that is helping us with that as well. So we'll be working with her to see what information updates are required.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, a comment through the chair, just on Mike's comments. Yeah, hey, thanks for that. Good clarification. I'm pleased I can keep my few dairy stock, my few cows, and eat my beef and get the meat sweat. So, yeah, I'm pleased I can still do that, because I'd sweat more if I had to become a vegan or a vegetarian. So, hey, I think you're right. We are in our lane, and that's what we need to focus on. That's what we can influence. And yeah, and there's some great work being done by the council and the staff in that lane at the moment and going forward. So no, well done.
Thank you. I've just got a few questions myself. I sent one through to you earlier. It's the fact that some of the data sets are actually a bit light on the Cambridge context for origin and destination Bluetooth data. Yeah, and the assumption is that you can use some Hamilton data. So I'm a bit worried about that actually. And you said you'd be able to talk to that a bit more, Rachel?
Oh yeah, Brian's support.
Brian's going to do it? Yeah.
Yeah, look, yeah, thanks for your questions, Councillor. Yeah, I guess the Bluetooth data, there is some in the strategic case as identified, and that gave origin and destination and tried to support the problem too, which was about the over-reliance on those key connections, the bridges. There is some data still to come from the Bluetooth, and that's about journey times through the town centre as well, and journey times across Cambridge that will help support some of the traffic model information that we've sought and not received that yet. With the Hamilton reference, that's the reference on page 44, 45, and that shows the trip length distribution by car, bike, etc. And basically tried to show an example of a close example of how shorter trips are done by bikes and walking, and longer trips by car, etc., etc. We tried to replicate that for Cambridge using the census data with a couple of attempts using the travel to work in education question, but unfortunately because of the sample size is a lot smaller than Hamilton, we got into confidentiality issues in it, and it spat out information that wasn't able to be used, unfortunately, for that. But we could potentially revisit that and have a look at other ways we potentially might be able to show that information.
Yes, I'm hoping that you still will be able to sort of refine your data sets of it so that we are having the best possible supporting information, when we're coming to, I suppose, responding to the problems that are identified and things like that.
Yes, thank you. We'll take that back to the team and we'll have a discussion on that. Thank you.
Cool. And I did want to ask about the population, I suppose, section on the strategic place, because it mentions the urban development national policy statement, but it doesn't mention the medium density residential standards, and they have the capacity or the potential to severely increase the density, because that allows three dwellings on one property, on one section.
Thank you. Noted. Thank you.
Okay. And Rachel, with it going back to the stakeholder group that I'm part of, so we'll be going through this with a fine tooth comb and doing some more work on it as well, or is it more looking at the long list at that point?
The intention of that meeting is to really look at the long list and shortlist options for that. For that side of things, but we're expecting that we will receive feedback over the next few months to tighten up this strategic case in the program business.
Okay, so I'd be able to give you a few more little things that I picked up that just would make sense to be a bit firmer. Excellent. Thank you, Liz.
I just want to acknowledge that I'm also in communication.
So
go through this Well, that's the question today as well.
Yeah, excellent. No, it's good.
Okay.
I thought you'd be all over it, Roger, and it's really good to hear that you've got those channels open. That's good.
Very quick
Liz.
review.
I'm going to move the recommendation.
Oh, very good, Liz. Okay, thank you. And I think Susan's going to second it. And I just want to add my congratulations to the excellent work that's been done. I'm really looking forward to the community, going all over it and giving us excellent feedback. So with that, I've got a mover and a seconder to receive the report. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So the next item is the passenger transport Kihihi bus depot, and we have Eric Vandewell here. Thank you. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, ex members. Can I take my report as read?
Yes, please, Eric. I'd appreciate that because we got a bit behind time with our last item, and we've already seen some of this before. Yes. So obviously I've got some questions already. So Roger and then Marcus. Oh, and then
Mine's a simple question. The land that we're talking about is currently council-owned reserve. Is the reclassification of that land is part of that, the need to actually offer back to iwi before we can repurpose it?
Through the chair, no, it's not. It's a revocation of a local purpose reserve on the title. We're not selling the land, so there's no.
That's the right.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Good. And Marcus.
And when we uplift the status of the land, do we have to go through a thing of buying new land to replace the land that we're taking out as reserve?
It's unlikely, but the process of DOC can administer. I don't think that'll happen because I don't think it has any special features on it as a reserve. So, yeah.
But just from your comment, that will be looked at as part of the process with the Minister and DOC. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then Lou.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Good report, well written. I think that this is a very positive thing. What it does is it actually puts in place or locks in place the bus depot in Kiki, which is going to be a big plus for Kiki because it means the buses will actually stop there and they're starting there. So it's part of the service. I'm just wondering, from my point of view, whether we can actually mention this to the general public after we've passed it today, that is the likely site. We're talking of a meeting on the 30th of May, as you know, and with Urban Mobility liaisons. But with that group of community that we're organising, can we actually indicate that this is going to be a possibility, or more than a possibility?
So the resolution, the previous resolution from this committee confirmed that. So yeah, it's publicly known that we intend to lease the land to the regional council for the purpose of installing a bus depot.
Before I mentioned that, I think this ties very nicely together with what we're discussing. It's all about urban mobility, so this could link into it with a good bus service. And in saying that, I will actually like to move that we accept this motion.
Okay, thank you, Lou. So we've got a move and could I just check also, you know, with the revocation of the reserve as a public, a local purpose, is there any requirement to actually consult with the local, like Kihihi residents and ratepayers or any other community groups about the loss of the local purpose reserve?
We don't think so, but in discussions with DOC, that may be part of their process
as well. Okay, excellent. All right, so with that, we've got a mover with Lou to move the report. And do we have a seconder? Thank you, Marcus. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. It's great. And the next item is the Waipa Community Facilities Trust report. So Sally, you're coming in to introduce the report, and I see Shane Walsh and Matt Horn as well from the Trust. A warm welcome to you, gentlemen. Thank you, and I'll let Sally introduce you.
Morena, thank you for welcoming this item to your agenda today. So obviously you know Matt Horn very well, and Shane is the newly appointed chairman of the trust. So Shane is here to support Matt today. So I'll hand over to Matt for him to run through his report and the latest information from the polls.
Morning, everybody.
Oh.
As you know, Shane's our new chairman. We're lucky to have him on board. We're here to discuss our first 6 months of this financial year and how we tracked. So virtually non-financial and a little bit of financial at the end. So year to date, through both facilities, now that we've got the period aquatic centre as well, we've had 176,000 or just over through the facilities, which is obviously significantly higher than last year due to COVID restrictions and higher than the years before because of we only had one facility, which was the Te Aomere Event Centre. So the next slide that we're showing, this is the event centre only, so you can see how we tracked. So if you were looking at 2021 or 2019 years, we're slightly down on those years. We still had some restrictions, but we also would have lost some people through to Cambridge. And we will see how that settles as if people get confidence and start back using the facilities. Stadium's the same. So during COVID, our stadium is probably the hardest hit area out of all our services, especially with gathering restrictions and the ability to host anything and do anything. So we were sort of on track, doing quite well this year. We've had a hiccup over our summer period. I don't know if anyone's been down there lately. It was every 3 years we have the floor resurfaced, which takes the coat off the top and repolishes it. This year, the product failed on one of the things, so we've had to sand it right down, redo the lines, reseal it all. So technically, we've got a brand new floor. It looks fantastic, but that's interfered with the next coming 6 months. We've had to close most of this term off, and we've lost a lot of bookings like mini ball and indoor netball for term one of which will be the reported in the next one. But it is good to see everybody slowly coming back, and the facility looks fantastic. Cambridge numbers, obviously we don't have a lot of data coming from, we're slowly getting that up. So we're about 30,000 up on last year. So people coming back, less restrictions. Not too sure how we went this summer because obviously it wasn't the greatest summer, the weather wasn't as good, but we will be up on last year. So we're on track to looking around that 110,000 people through the facility, which will be significantly up on the just under 94,000 last year. Club Waipa, that's our gym. Obviously, once again, that was hit very hard with restrictions, and we allowed 100 people in our whole facility, and trying to divvy them up between the pools, the gym, and allowing the cafe to operate has been a bit of a challenge, but we slowly see them picking back up. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but just to let everybody know, last month, February, had our highest membership ever in our history. We're now over 900, about 912 members, which we think is significant due to the amount of gyms or those type of CrossFit things that have opened in Te Aomere. So very pleased with that. Swim Waipa, once again, well up. Obviously, we've got 2 swim schools now. My understanding from our director of swimming is we knew this would happen, that Cambridge would slowly grow, and it's just starting to pip the TA side, which is pretty good because they've got St. Peter's already established over there. So we're around the 1,800 across both sites, people attending or students, and Cambridge is slightly higher than TA for the first time in this term. Health and safety, obviously 2 facilities, twice as much incidents. The good thing is we've had no notifiable events to WorkSafe New Zealand. Have ambulance, that's probably about up to 5. just for example, we had a person unconscious in our garden last month, early morning, just so, had to get an ambulance and things like that, medical. So the team does pretty well. When we're talking about accidents, we're talking about if we give a Band-Aid or an ice pack. So that happens quite regularly at the facilities, excited kids, and they're running and kids play fighting and enjoying themselves. And sometimes we get a few cut lips. Contaminations, once again, that's not always code grounds, but could be blood and vomit. 2 facilities now. So they obviously creep up. Poor water quality. So being a pool safe facility, or our qual mark of a pool safe facility, we have to average above 85% of good quality water. So we're currently averaging at 94%. Cambridge side with newer plant is tracking about 76%, and TA is about 93, but combined is about 94.5, which is, well above the 85 benchmark. Customer feedback. I don't know if this is reflective of council's thing in the way the society is with ram raids and disgruntled people and things like that. So our compliments aren't really that high this year. We're currently in the process of doing our annual survey. So that closed on Monday. So we're just collating the data now. So hopefully we get a reflection of what's happening. What's not shown in there is currently we've had 10 people trespassed across both sites, which is the highest I've ever seen. But it is with mandates and all things that happen. It just seems to be where the people are at the moment. And
can I just? I mean, there's got to be some crazy behaviour.
Yeah, it goes down to fights, inappropriate behaviour, staff abuse. Some things we won't tolerate, especially for the staff. I don't want to talk too much about the inappropriate behaviour, but some of it's not nice, and it's just automatic. And we've got to a point where the police deliver the trespassers now to keep the safety for our staff. We gather the information and incident reports. Most of the facilities have got CCTV, so hopefully we capture most of them and things like that. But sometimes it's just a bit of fraud, things like that, where people have, used their memberships or given their memberships for someone else to use and things like that. But most of it is abuse of staff and inappropriate behaviour. And we do ban people. We just say, no, that's enough for today. If kids are just bombing and they're not listening, we'll just say, okay, it's time to go home and we won't trespass them and such. But repetitive behavioural stuff that's not tolerable.
100% support the actions. If there's any staff threat, I mean, that's starting to come through in terms of our council staff in the building here as well. So
yeah,
hopefully it's not too much of an increasing social characteristic. I hope we're not going to see that becoming the normal practice kind of thing within our community.
Yeah, I do want to acknowledge the staff because where we're located, especially on the TA side, we have the playground. So the staff do get called out for incidents over there, which is unfortunate. We seem to have undesirables meeting there to, fight and do things that they shouldn't. And then our staff being the closest point and normally open weekends, they get stuck trying to deal with it. And if there's no weapon involved, the police kind of take their time. Not that I'm saying the police aren't busy, I'm not meaning it like that. But yeah, it's unfortunate that our staff get pulled away from their core duties to try and help and sort out things that are outside our delivery. So those are our fees and charges. Like everyone here, we're really conscious of trying to raise them and what it does for the community. We raised them last year, so this year, the upcoming year, we're not going to change them as we speak. So trying to keep the prices as they are, even though our costs will go up. Still quite good value, as you can see in the family passes. You got a family or 2 adults, 2 children, and you have a hard side inflatable and entry, and it's $40. You can't go to the movies probably for 2 or 3 kids and under 100 once you've had the movies and bought ice cream. So, and they can spend there all day. all go to the other side. Capital works, besides the new floor, which we'll show in the annual report, we had a big lighting upgrade. The lights keep blowing, and we've put about 40 new LED lights in there, so there's no dark patches. It's consistent light. Doesn't cost as much, and if you turn them off, you can turn them back on. You don't have to wait for them to cool down for 30 minutes and then heat back up, and it looks actually quite stunning. And with the new floor, it looks really good. So about $2,000 a pop for those lights, and I think of 40 of them, it's a significant project for the trust. Financials. So the first part of the financials, I just want to highlight the money that we've got additional to our operational funding. So we had a few staff on the Apprentice Boost scheme, whether they were lifeguards or learn to swim, and we received about $6,500 for that. Then we employed a few people that were on the benefit, and so the MSD would actually give us money for hiring them. So we got those, and they seem to be working out well. We got grants that should actually be 21,000, not 28,700. Just realised that I've added the GST, and we don't have to pay GST on the grants. And then the COVID support for our staff going 6, so about 45,000 so far, additional to the 20 grand from Water Safety New Zealand to deliver water safety and boat safety across the region. But that stipulation has changed. It used to be all schools. Now I think it's decile 1 to 6, not right up to 10. But tough to read from here, so I might just go there, my old eyes. This is how we're checking against last year. We're down slightly on our income, but last year we were well supported by COVID support and things like that, but not too bad. And then operational funding, so we're slightly up overall. Capital renewals, we will be receiving this year's funding. We haven't received it yet, but that should be coming shortly. And you can see how we're tracking there. So we're down against last year in most of the things, but still positive in the surplus. Please note that that surplus, while it looks good of 150K, we're having our 5-yearly closure, which is due again, where we close the pools down and actually do empty all of the pools, expansion joints, retiling into the balance tanks and things, which is a big thing. Additional to our regular annual servicing, we do this every 5 years, so the pools can they get a good huck and a good service right through. So that's roughly about it. We're quite pleased with how we're tracking, and we hope to do a bit better, because obviously term 1 and term 2 are some of the better terms for the year.
Thank you, Matt. Now I've got a question here from Roger.
Yeah, thank you. Congratulations on your chair's position. Good. I really supportive of what you're doing down at the Cambridge pool, and I'm hearing some great public comments about enjoying the facility down there. What's the update on the coffee cart that's going to be part of the facility?
Through Madam Chair, yes, we're really excited about it. A whole lot of work's been happening behind the scenes. Some of the stipulations, we're going to get everything on board to submit our resource consent. One of the new variations is to have accessibility report done. So we've engaged a company called B Lab, which used to be called, sorry, I can't remember, Accessibility New Zealand or something.
So it is a company that used to be Accessible, but they're now B Lab. So they provide this type of work and assessments and support to these type of developments. So a good company.
And we've got Geotech looking at the site. We've just done our first detailed design of the internals that is now getting assessed by the electrician to make sure we can do that, and then we've engaged a QS to price that up. So once we actually get the Be Accessible's report, we'll submit our resource consent through to council. So we're hoping to have works and have it completed by, our goal is 30th of September, so we're open for the next summer. That's our goal. but we know what it's like in the availability of things. We've ordered plant. It took 12 months to arrive. We ordered some plant in November that was supposed to arrive 4 weeks, and then it's supposed to arrive in February. It still hasn't arrived, and it's now mid-March or end of March. So those are the challenges that we have, but our goal is to have it all ready to go in September, so then the operator can get stuck in and be open for the summer season.
Thank you. I've also got a question now from Lou, and then Liz, and then Phil.
Thank you. Well done, Shane, and a great report. You know, in the current economic times, this is really good. How long will you actually be closed for your 5-year renovation? This is quite an important thing for the community to know.
Yeah, so the good thing is we don't close the whole facility. We still have the gym and the stadium going and the cafe going. It's only the pools. We try and make it between 6 and 8 weeks. This year, our operations manager or our facilities manager is quite quietly confident we can get it done in 4 weeks. So we're trying to run it from the 3rd of June to the 3rd of July. There may be some works that would go on after that that wouldn't affect the day-to-day running, besides a small service, which would be the hydroslide, where we can scaffold and wrap that, and the rest of the pools can carry on while they do their work. So provided nothing goes wrong, Murphy's Law doesn't come in, we're hoping that we can get it done in a month, which then wouldn't affect other services like our Learn to Swim or our schools program with the water safety and boat safety, along with some other services that the public, you know, deem necessary for their daily lives.
Yeah, good to know that. Thank you. Liz?
A great report and lots of positive feedback I'm hearing from both the Te Amutu and the Cambridge pools. So that's a really good thing. So my question is just around the stadium actually. So look, I understand events are back in you know, nationally now, and I look at the Te Amutu stadium, and I know I've been to some cracker events there in the past, in particular events that are more national or regional, which I think the benefits economically to Te Amutu are huge when you've got overnight stays. I'm wondering, with the 12 bookings you've mentioned in your report, how many of them might actually create an economic benefit for Te Amutu, or are you still moving towards that? And if so, do you have a marketing plan to bring those sorts of events to Te Amutu? Because I just know the benefits to retail, but also to accommodation providers, cafes, restaurants. It's across the board, really. So I'm really keen to see those numbers and events bump up in the future. So just wondering where you're at with that.
Yeah, Liz, that's absolutely where we must head. And we've done a strategic plan. We had a workshop a few months ago, and that's in our strategic plan to try to grow that side of the business. One challenge that we have is the lack of accommodation in Te Awamutu. And because of the lack of accommodation, there are some events that we would love to be able to go for, but we can't because of that alone. So I think it needs to be noted in this room that there needs to be some work on trying to get some more accommodation for Te Awamutu, and that is slowing the economic growth down. But in terms of we've got a fantastic facility, it's underutilised, and we need to increase that, and we're going about that business.
Good points. Thank you, Sean. And Phil.
Through the chair, thank you. Thanks for your reports. Great. Great. Yes, some good feedback from the community about the facility in Cambridge, is what I'm hearing as well. So that's great. A couple of small questions. How's the usage of the outdoor pool been in Cambridge? And then up on your report, you had accidents, which you explained, but there's incidents underneath. What's the little difference between an accident and incident type of thing? Please.
Through Madam Chair. Yeah, the outside pool's been steady. Obviously, weather people choose, but you have those hardy ones that will go in the rain, and they'll come and they'll go, I still go, I don't care, I'm going to get wet anyway. Obviously, if it's lightning or things like that, we have to bring them inside. We had a swimming event that was based there last week. We had to bring them all inside just because it was wet and more comfortable. But it is steady, and we do get a lot of the long course, and we get a lot of outside bookings because we heat the pools. Rotorua obviously got geothermal, but not many 50-metre outdoor pools like I can think of Morrinsville that aren't. We heat ours. So yes, the 50-metre pool. Yes.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
Right, I didn't think there was going to be heat. Oh, okay.
So it is heated. And so we've had a number of swim camps from outside Tauranga, Auckland, come and use the facilities. Obviously, Triathlon New Zealand use it quite a bit. St. Peter's is a keen user of the 50 because we have long course champs coming up in the swimming calendar, things like that. So the second part of the question is accidents and incidents. So an accident is where I end up giving first aid attention to somebody. An incident, whereas you and I might have a fight, that's the incident. Then you punch me and break my nose, and then that's the accident. So they can be combined. So incidents would be an event, could be the plant breaking down, power interruption. It could be an argument or disagreement and things like that. So that's how we classify the different ones between an accident and it's more of an event than it is in supplying first aid.
Cool. So going back to the outdoor pool, sorry, I didn't realise that was getting heated, but it's great. So is that up to, I think, 27.8 degrees is the recommended temperature, I think? For
Yes, when the weather's warm, we kind of drop it a little bit. If you're a good swimmer, you don't want it too hot, you get lethargic.
Yeah.
But around the 27-degree mark, and then if it's a really nice day by the sun, it kind of creeps itself, but half a degree.
Any solar with that, or is it?
No solar at the moment. No, but we have pool covers that go on religiously daily. And you can see in the power report, when you don't put the pool covers on, you can see the spike on the plant in the energy cost.
Cool. Okay, thanks for your report. Thank you.
Can I just ask a quick question about the boiler issues at the Tuamutu pool? Is that affecting your ability to get that water temperature to, the ideal one, or are you managing it without?
Yep. So for everybody that may or may not know, we had issues with our boiler. So we were servicing it and they said there's some internals slightly starting to leak. Then come 30th of December, they completely fell over, even though we've ordered the parts. They don't stock anything in New Zealand and they're coming from Eastern Europe, and we know what's happening in Eastern Europe. And so they were supposed to arrive in December. They didn't arrive until February, and we're still waiting now. In the interim, we were down the heating for about 3 weeks, 30th to about the 21st of January, 30th of December. We ended up hiring a temporary boiler, and we've installed that. So that's ticking along.
Yeah.
But now we're hiring it longer than we thought, so that's an ongoing cost for us. But we've reviewed that. We're now going to service twice yearly instead of annually, which is above the recommendations. The challenge of trying to stock parts is if we don't use it, this is the first time we've actually had to do it since the boiler's been installed. So if you have the parts sitting there for 12 months, 2 years, there's no warranty on them. And we don't have a lot of storage. If anyone's been down that plant room, it's pretty narrow and tight. So we don't really have any storage. Those are the challenges that we've got. One of the things that we're also looking at is, can we then buy this current boiler as a backup? So our Cambridge site has 2 boilers and they work in conjunction. So one of them is working 60% and the 40 kicks in, and then they alternate. Whereas this other side, we've had one boiler that's been really well and been serviced regularly. It's just come to this point where 5-6 years down the track, it's needed parts that they don't stock in New Zealand because they're not high turnover.
Oh, thanks for that. I really appreciate, the effort that you go to make it all work, actually. It sort of highlights, how dedicated you all are and the commitment the team has, to delivering an excellent facility. Now, Sean, would you like to just finish up?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just think it's worth noting we've got a fantastic facility in Te Awamutu in Cambridge, and we should all be proud of it. But also, I think we should be really proud of the Waipa Community Facility Trust deed, which was signed 10 years ago in March 2013. And in this deed, trustee is a trustee for a maximum of 9 years. And 3 of the trustees that signed this deed have just retired. And I'd just like to acknowledge them because they do it. It's a voluntary thing. There's no remuneration. And so I'd like to acknowledge Mike Lord, Michael Livingston, and Merv Jide. And I'd specifically like to talk about Michael Livingston, who has been a really great trustee. Given his background in project management, etc., and his involvement in the original building of the pools, he's been a great trustee. And the second person I'd like to acknowledge is Merv Jide as the chair. He did a great job, and I think we've got a really strong trust that we can all be proud of. I'd also like to acknowledge Matt. We're very, very lucky to have probably the best CEO in New Zealand in terms of the swimming pools, etc. So thank you for your work, Matt. And yesterday we had a meeting with council, with Sally, and I just also like to acknowledge that the great working relationship between the council and the trust means that we have a really good model that we should all be proud of. But again, I'd just like to acknowledge those 3 people who spent 9 years on the trust and did a fantastic job. So I'd just like to thank them through this group.
Thank you, Shane. Yeah, my apologies for getting your first name wrong. And I think what you said is really important, that we acknowledge, that commitment that's set this trust up, as an amazing community facility for us all to enjoy, and definitely acknowledge Matt's outstanding work for us in that space as well. So with that, we've got a resolution to receive the report. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that? Roger's going to move it, and a seconder, Lou's going to second. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. And now we have the tree maintenance services contract with Angela and Matt. Sorry, Matt and Angela. Thank you. Page 122. Welcome to our meeting, and we'll hand it over to you to speak to our topic. Thank you.
Cool, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to introduce myself, I'm Matt Johnson, the Park Operations Team Leader for Waipa Council, and Angela is our Community Services Team Leader for Facilities. Assets, sorry. Just a recent change of title. So yeah, we're here to speak to the report for the increased and approved contract sum for our tree maintenance contract. I take the purpose of it is to seek approval for the increased contract sum for the tree maintenance service contract. I'd take it as read and take any questions on it, I guess.
Thank you. Now, any questions? Liz and then Roger.
I guess we all know and understand the reason for this report and the need for an increase. So I'm happy to move the recommendation. Don't have any questions.
Thanks, Liz.
No, likewise, similar comment to Liz. Certainly appreciate the work that you've actually done over the last couple of weeks in sorting out the problems of Gabrielle. It's been really noticeable, and well done on that. And certainly I endorse the reason of the transfer from the bit of kitty that you got to one side that we can use for what is a good purpose. So I'd like to second the
Thank
motion.
you. Thank you. And then I've got Lou.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was a great report. Well done, mate. And I do agree that there's going to be quite a significant amount of ongoing maintenance, with a lot of those trees that we had, although they haven't fallen out, they could be damaged to an extent that they might need significant maintenance. The one thing I just wanted to question was just where you said that you've built up a substantial balance in your general insurance reserve. And with all of what's gone on in the current economic climate with insurance, I would suggest that we're going to see quite significant increases of all of our insurance premiums over the period. So we will have to, although it says here that they want to use an amount of, there's 526,000 sitting there. It suggests a use of 300,000. That we might be robbing Peter to pay Paul here a little bit with what's going on. It was just a thought, and just raise the issue, because I do think you'll find most of our insurance costs will go up.
Yes, Mike.
Yeah, through the chair. I'm assuming that there's no government's subsidy around all this. Otherwise, we would have claimed it. But is it worth lobbying because if these events are going to become more frequent, is it worth lobbying government at some level to actually try and get a fund set up for these sort of events?
I think Sally's going to speak to that. Thanks, Sally.
Through the chair, in terms of recovery funding that has been distributed in response to Cyclone Gabrielle, we as a district haven't received any of that funding. The funding that did come for the state of emergency that was declared at a Waikato regional level has gone to those who declared a local state of emergency. So Thames, Coromandel, Hauraki, Waikato district, and the application of that has been based on houses that have been red stickered in terms of percentages of draw. I have been keeping an eye out in terms of recovery funding of what we could access, and there hasn't been anything that's opened up in terms of that. But do agree that I know that Hamilton Waikato Tourism has been lobbying quite strongly for businesses that have been affected, whether or not Waitoma was closed off, etc., from a tourism perspective. So there has been lobbying happening, trying to get that funding through, but we will continue that as well.
Thanks, Sally.
And Phil.
Yep, thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks for your report today. It's great. So when the cyclone came through, I think a question I asked at the next meeting was, what's our budget for emergencies and things like that? I think it was about 60 grand. Is there going to be a recommendation to increase that? To increase the budget there for emergencies and things like that, incidents?
This contract, tree contract is finishing up in September this year. And so we'll be going out to tender, and there will be a recommendation to increase the emergency work for tree contracts.
And our emergency budget, we've gone well over that, haven't we?
Yes, yeah, we've gone well over that. We also had Cyclone Dovey last year, so that was also
right.
Went over the emergency fund in the previous financial year as well too.
Yeah,
if I could,
Brad, would you want to speak
just
to
to expand on what Matt was saying there, it'll be through the long-term plan processes that we'll do that review of that cost. So for the next incoming financial year, it will remain static, but we'll have the opportunity to the LTP.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Brad and Matt, for that. So I think we've got all the questions finished. Thank you. And now I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. So I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Okay, and now we have Jennifer. Oh, sorry. Oh, Brian standing in for Jennifer. Thank you, Brian. And these are the road closures. So the first one is the Cambridge Cycling Festival.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll take the report as read, if that's okay, and answer any questions.
Any questions on this one?
Happy to move.
Okay, so Liz is going to move and Phil's going to second. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. The next one is the Dragon Boat Festival, and Councillor Stolwick's just going to, remain now that. Okay, so Marcus is going to move. Lou's going to second. I'm struggling to keep up. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. The Anzac Day Cambridge Parade. Are you involved with this? Cambridge. Not Cambridge. So, okay. So Phil's going to move. Who's going to second? Marcus is seconding. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. And then the Anzac Day Te Muru Parade road closure. And so Lou's not taking part in this, but Marcus is going to move and Phil's going to second. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Record time. Brian, you just had so much to say, but you were denied the opportunity. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're going to ask the question now. Okay.
Well, I congratulate you for going fast. But just one question. Is there any policy difference between a Friday closure and a weekend closure in general? Do we have a position, or are you always case by case?
very much case by case. When event organisers come to us, we look at the merit and the impacts, and you know, they do that community sort of contact, and so there is always and I guess whether it's a weekday activity or a weekend activity, there's always the possibility of objections. So we're always trying to balance enabling community events with minimising traffic disruption. That's always a balance.
Okay, Mike, cool, excellent, thank you. All right, our next item is the contract signed under delegation. Dawn, I see your name against this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this one is the awarding of a contract to undertake remedial work after erosion at the lakeside edge, and awarded to Care Landscaping Limited.
Comfortable with that, everyone? Okay, a mover and a seconder then, please. Liz is going to move and Bruce is going to second. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. And now we have the resolution to exclude the public, which is on page 155 and 157 of our agenda. Thank you, Roger. And a seconder, please. Bruce is going to second. All